So what's good, TMG fam? It's your boy L and I'm back with another reaction. How y'all feel? Welcome back to the channel. Salute, man. And next up, we checking out 20 of the greatest archaeological discoveries of 2024. So let's see some strange things happen, all right? And these videos will make you question a lot. So remember, this is for entertainment purposes only. Let's check it out.
There have certainly been some years in history in which archaeology has had an especially significant time, like perhaps 1922, when Tutankhamun's tomb was discovered, or 1985, when the wreck of the Titanic was finally located, or perhaps even 1946, when the Dead Sea Scrolls began to surface. But 2024? Well, who could possibly say? There have been some historical finds, but as of yet, there's still time, and 2024 may not go down in history as the greatest in archaeology. So without further ado, here are 20 greatest archaeological discoveries of 2024. And stick around, because we're going to find out what the ancient Romans drank. Number 20. Tomb and artifacts in Saqqara. A joint expedition between Egypt and Japan has uncovered some new old junk at the ancient necropolis of Saqqara. This is actually something that happens, well, all the time. They find tombs and ancient stuff on a fairly regular basis. This particular discovery was a rock-cut tomb and a whole enormous heap of artifacts from many eras. Saqqara necropolis is an ancient burial ground in Egypt, which is why so many tombs and artifacts happen to be found in this specific area. It's located near the city of Cairo and is famous for its many pyramids and tombs. The Step Pyramid of Djoser is the most well-known of these, and it was built over 4,600 years ago, considered to be the oldest stone structure of its size in the world, and marks the beginning of the pyramid construction age of Egypt. Saqqara was a burial site for the ancient Egyptian capital of Memphis, and was used for burials all over for several millennia. From the early dynasty period to the Greco-Roman period, the necropolis included a wide variety of tombs and burial structures, such as mastabas. These are flat-roofed tombs, pyramids, and underground galleries. The artifacts found on this occasion were especially interesting because they included 2 terracotta statues of the goddess Isis, one of the child deity of Harpocrates, and a whole selection of amulets, pottery objects, and various things with hieroglyphic inscriptions. Now it's time for the fancy topic. Here we are again, where this time we're trying to tell you some utter hogwash about this picture being a real-life bona fide discovery in Egypt. This guy, allegedly, has found an alien statue. It seems likely, you know, legit and all. What are you being so skeptical for? I mean, this is clearly a real archaeologist, and he's definitely doing some real archaeology, and that is definitely a real picture of an alien head sculpture, and it was definitely found in Egypt. I mean, really.
Let's just go on and call it a great work of art, man, because that's what I'm feeling like. Some artist created this, painted this, drew this, made this up on a computer. So let's just call it that, a great work of art.
Why are you so suspicious? Go on and tell me what you think in the comments down below using the hashtag #FancyTopic in relation to what you just saw on the screen. Number 19. Oldest Amazonian cities. All the architecture from the ancient Mayan world that exists deep in remote areas of rainforest have long escaped discovery by us modern humans. There are so many lost or legendary places that remain unfound, perhaps because they're buried in thick jungle and cannot be detected except if you happen to stumble upon them in the dense forest. This seems to be the case in this part of Guatemala. New technology is allowing archaeologists and historians to map areas and uncover ancient structures in ways that have never been possible before. Previously, this area of Guatemala only revealed a few pointy peaks of monuments that jutted out above the canopy, but now this new LiDAR scanner is able to reveal a whole landscape that's hidden beneath the foliage.
I keep telling y'all, man, technology is going to take us where we need to go. It's going to figure out the questions and the answers to the questions that we have about a lot of these things in history and origins and different things like that, man. Technology, we just getting started, man. Prepare yourselves.
Since the Mayan civilization collapsed over 1,000 years ago, the rainforest has more or less swallowed up all of the remaining architecture and evidence of this extremely significant era in history. This new technology is allowing a different view within the dense greenery. LiDAR stands for Light Detection and Ranging, and it uses a bunch of laser beams from planes flying overhead. The light bounces back and creates a map that contours beneath the trees. It is very clever stuff. I just wonder though, is all of this flying laser beam business in the Amazon related in any way whatsoever to those UFO sightings that are so popular there? Makes you wonder now, doesn't it? Number 18.
That's a good point though. That's a good point. Now, they should respond back and give us an answer and say, well, these are the times, and we can coordinate the times that we can rule it out. But whatever happens, they never say nothing, anything. So we're left wondering.
Tootan Mexico. This next place is the archaeological gem that is the prehistoric Hispanic city of Teotihuacan, which I have probably mispronounced, and it is also known as the place where the gods were created. Located to the northeast of modern-day Mexico City, this one was built between 1st and 7th centuries AD. It's full of massive monuments, which includes its most famous monoliths, the Temple of something or other, and the pyramids of the sun and moon. Each of these colossal structures was laid out in a very specific way according to various significant geometric and symbolic principles.
The Sun Pyramid is 66 meters tall.
Weirdly, despite the massive scale of the city and the clearly important part that it played, we actually know very little about the people who built it and lived there. There is evidence that the city exported the fine tools carved from obsidian, in particular darts and spearheads. The area is famous for its rich obsidian deposits, so it makes sense that the people use this place to build their city. The hieroglyphs here have yet to be deciphered, and there have been very few places or tombs to reveal much of the history of the people. The plot does thicken. Number 17. 2 ancient Greek temples. Here we are in southern Italy, in a place called Paestum, where 2 ancient Greek Doric temples have been recently uncovered by a group of archaeologists. These temples were part of an ancient city and appear to date all the way back to the 5th century BC. There have been discoveries in and around the site that have added to the significance of this temple finding. Beneath the temples themselves, there are other smaller temples, and they have also been found beneath a collapsed wall of the temple that there's evidence of a road that runs parallel to the site. The position of the temple is strategic, appearing to have been designed as a sanctuary in order to protect the urban space. This find is significant as it adds to the existing 3 temples, for which the area is most famous. Number 16. Archaeological discoveries in Venice. Next up, we're in Venice in northern Italy, where excavations have unearthed a vanished church right in the heart of the city at the Piazza San Marco. Amongst the evident remains of the church, there are also plenty of evidence of people that were once there. Tombs of ancient Venetians appeared, as well as the stones of the ancient place of worship. This is the medieval church of San Gimignano, and it's apparently demolished in the 12th century when the plans to build the current Piazza San Marco began. Another church by the same name would later be built nearby in the 16th century. Although there are a lot of reasons to believe that this is the long-lost 12th century church, archaeology is a science, so there are lots of further examinations and things to decipher before they can be certain of their discovery. If it is what they suspect, then this would be amongst the oldest structures that have been found in the area of the famous square. Number 15. Tomb in Panama. Archaeologists in El Caño Archeological Park in Panama have apparently discovered the tomb of an important lord who was buried somewhere between 750 to 800 CE. El Caño is known for its ancient burial grounds, and this is the 9th tomb that's been discovered there since excavations of the place began in 2008. The people who were native to central Panama from 200 BCE to 1550 CE are known for their pottery, metalwork, cultural life, and and ceremonial rituals. Inside of this particular tomb, researchers found a lot of ceramics, bone, and gold artifacts, which included things like breastplates and belts, bells, skirts, flutes, and some jewelry, like gold-plated earrings that were made from sperm whale teeth. That's kind of weird, but also kind of awesome. Panama's Ministry of Culture.
So I was thinking, like, how awesome that side of it was, you know what I mean, to find that stuff, to see how far fashion goes back. You know, the different things they did to accentuate themselves and make themselves either look high ranking if they were, to separate themselves from the others. Like, that's always intriguing to me, and especially the fashion aspect of it like that.
Culture has been quick to make a lot of boasting about how important all of it is, and what a great destination that Panama is as well. Alrighty then. The lead archaeologist believes that the Lord was about 30 to 40 years old at the time of his death, and have also noted that the discovery of musical instruments, rather than weapons, would suggest they were most likely a religious leader rather than a warrior sort. So the team began calling him the Lord of the Flutes. Ooh, sounds jazzy. Number 4.
That's something we don't hear about either as much. The musical instruments. I think this is the first video, I don't want to say ever, my mind is bad terribly, but I don't remember too many instruments we've talked about them discovering from back then. That's interesting. Why they don't go in depth on that?
14. 17th century armor. In a Polish village, a metal detectorist found part of a set of hussar armor. It might not sound all that thrilling, but metal detectorists usually just dig up old bottle caps and horseshoes, so this was kind of exciting. Hussars were light cavalry units from the late 17th and 18th centuries, and originally came from medieval Hungary. They were later hired as mercenaries by Habsburg emperors to fight the Ottomans, and were involved in a load of different extremely violent limb-chopping sort of battles all across Western Europe. Such fun. In Poland, the first Hussar units were formed in 1500 and participated in significant battles like Orza in 1514, Obertyne in 1531, and the Battle of Vienna in 1683. Polish hussars followed a heavy Hungarian model, wearing a lot of armor and using long lances to poke their enemies from a safe distance. The armor that was found is in a village in Poland's Zapotal district and was found at a depth of 60 centimeters. Most of the main parts are intact, however, the cuirass, apparently which means piece of armor that's made up of the breastplate and backplate fastened together, is actually missing. It's also apparently a group of archaeologists from the region that have noted that the forearm bracers, the left shoulder pad, the neck and nape protector, and a semicircular helmet were all preserved, so there's that going for it. Experts from the University of Lublin think that the armor dates back to the early 17th century and was most probably made locally, although the lack of decorations makes it hard to identify it any further. Number 13. A sunken prehistoric fort. A sunken fort has been discovered in the area around Clew Bay Island off the north coast of Mayo in Ireland. It's believed, upon first inspection, by archaeologists, that the fort dates back all the way back to the late Bronze Age between 1100 and 900 BC. The fort first made an appearance when parts of large ramparts were uncovered by the tidal isthmus that links the island to the shoreline at Westport. These ramparts are built from large limestone blocks and are somewhere between 200 to 300 meters in length. The structure is covered when the tide is high, and both parts were so covered in seaweed that it's really difficult to actually identify that there was anything of significance there at all in the first place. Number 12. Roman dodecahedrons. It seems as though the ancient Romans were well into dodecahedron-shaped stuff. In fact, they left their 12-faced litter all over Europe for at least a couple of hundred years. Those litter bugs. The Roman dodecahedron is a hollow object which is usually quite small and made of copper alloy. It features 12 flat pentagonal faces, each with a hole in them that connects with the hollow center. There's no mention of these objects in contemporary accounts or even in any pictures, so guess what? Nobody has the foggiest idea what they were actually used for. Obviously, as is always the case when people don't have any idea, plenty of people have decided to make something up. And some of these suggestions have included that these shapes being used in surveying equipment to measure distances and such. Others have suggested that they were for sowing grain, and there's even a theory that they were fortune-telling devices, perhaps a very early version of a magic 8-ball. but who can say, and who even cares? What do you think they were for? Sling some of your most exciting ideas in the comments down below. Number 11. Babylon's Ishtar Gate. This iconic blue gate that's decorated with bulls and dragons was ordered by King Nebuchadnezzar II and was once an entrance to ancient Babylon. Ideas about its age and such had long been understood, but new evidence has emerged with the use of new technologies that have changed the previous understanding of the Ishtar Gate. Archaeologists use the magnetic fields in clay bricks to determine the construction date of Babylon's Ishtar Gate, and it was thought that the gate was built to celebrate the conquest of Jerusalem, but new findings now suggest to experts that it was actually constructed much later than that. It seems that the gate was built in 3 phases, and while the first phase bricks had Nebuchadnezzar II's name, the exact dates in other phases are uncertain. So that leaves the question, how was it done?
Yeah, like, it was walking, like, sometimes you walking through something, and a door like that, you're going somewhere very, very important, but you don't necessarily know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Like, am I walking through here, and am I gonna make it back out, or am I walking through here, my life is gonna change for the good? You know what I mean? Like, you don't know, but you could tell this was a place of very, very importance.
It seems that archaeologists took small samples from 5 bricks across the 3 phases and measured their geomagnetic fields, a technique called archaeomagnetism. This method is now understood to be even more accurate than radiocarbon dating. The analysis showed there were no significant time gaps between the phases, indicating the entire gate was built around the same time, around 583 BC, after the conquest of Jerusalem in 586 BC. This suggests the gate was finished while Nebuchadnezzar II was still alive. The findings imply that the gate's design remained consistent throughout its construction, and phases 2 and 3 were part of the original plan and not later additions. Researchers aim to use the archaeomagnetic method on other ancient structures in Mesopotamia, as it's been proven reliable with fired mud bricks, a common building material of the era. Number 10. Spicy wine. If you've ever wondered whether the wine that Romans drank was the same as the wine that we have now, well, it looks like your questions will soon be answered. A study that was published in January of 2024 has examined Roman clay jars called dolia that were used for making, fermenting, and storing ancient wines. By comparing these ancient vessels to modern wine containers, researchers have gained new insights into the flavors and processes of Roman winemaking. Dolia were porous and egg-shaped containers that were partially buried and sealed during the winemaking process. This method, along with natural yeasts, apparently gave the wine a slightly spicy taste and the aromas of toasted bread, apples, roasted walnuts, and curry. But then again, all the wine experts now can taste all kinds of junk in modern wine, like berries and chocolate and wood, and frankly, it all tastes like wine to the rest of us. The study also explored whether Roman wine was red or white, a long debated topic, and researchers found that unlike modern white wine, ancient winemaking did not filter out grape skins, leading to a wide range of wine colors, including white, reddish yellow, blood red, and black. Thanks to their well-designed dolia, the Romans could ferment wines with various flavors. However, more research is needed to further understand these ancient winemaking techniques, and then perhaps we will all finally be able to sleep at night when we know for sure what ancient wine tasted like. Number 9. Fortification in Saudi Arabia. Archaeologists have discovered a large ancient fortification around the Khaybar Oasis in the North Arabian Desert. This is one of the 2 biggest fortifications in Saudi Arabia. These, like the Khaybar, have been home to humans for between 4,000 to 5,000 years, and these small green areas in the desert, with that rare but essential freshwater source like an underground river, become sanctuaries for plants and animals. Human-made aquifers and channels help to irrigate the areas, making them suitable for long-term living. Scientists have revealed the fortification, which had walls that were once 14.5 kilometers long and 1.7 to 2.4 meters thick. They were also up to 5 meters high and enclosed with about 1,100 hectares. Based on radiocarbon dating, the walls were built between 2250 and 1950 BCE. Today, less than half of the walls and 74 bastions remain. Many walled oases date back to the Bronze Age and have been found in northwestern Arabia. These fortified settlements were huge and were similar to European megaforts from the same period. The Arabian deserts have some of the oldest fortifications in the world, like the citadel of Aleppo in Syria that has been inhabited for 4,500 years. Stuff out there in the desert really is pretty old. Number 8. Ancient Roman Arm Guard. Being an archaeologist is definitely not a job for the impatient amongst you. It mainly involves sitting in a muddy ditch, rubbing stuff with a toothbrush, or apparently doing some of the most difficult and tedious jigsaw puzzles ever. And there's not even a picture of the finished thing to follow. For the first time in 2,000 years, a Roman arm guard has been fully reconstructed out of dozens of fragments. The brass armor was discovered in 1906 at the ancient Roman fort of Trimontium near Melrose in the Scottish borders. Found in over 100 pieces, some with leather straps still attached, it has been part of the National Museums of Scotland collection for more than a century. And nobody could face getting it out of the box and fiddling about with it until now. Conservators in Edinburgh recently spent weeks piecing together the fragments. They are a patient bunch, and as a result, they now have the most complete example of a Roman brass arm guard. The arm guard was both protection and a status symbol for the Roman legionary who had worn it. Initially thought to be the body armor or thigh guard, its true function as an arm guard was only recognized in the 1990s. The armor would have covered the soldier's shoulder and extended down to a metal piece protecting the hand, possibly inspired by gladiator gear. Although quite how it ended up in just so many tiny little pieces, well, that's anyone's guess. Number 6.
First of all, salute to them for having the patience to put that together, man. I used to watch my grandma put together the pieces, and I have a nervous breakdown trying to put together one of them puzzle pieces like that, man. Them puzzles she used to pull out the box and put together. But I always wondered, like, the armor and stuff like that, body armor, different ones for different body parts. How much did that stuff weigh? I wanted to know that. And they didn't mention that there, but if y'all know, like, typically, how much would that armor type stuff weigh on them?
7. Ptolemaic Roman treasures in Al-Banasa. Next up, we have even more stuff being discovered in Egypt. It's basically like a big sand pit that's stuffed full of all the abandoned junk of all the ancient civilizations and things that are uncovered every day. This time, we have some old junk from the Ptolemaic and Roman empires. These discoveries include tombs, as well as all the usual mummies and coffins and golden masks and terracotta statues that you would expect to find in this part of the world. These burials are from two distinct eras, the Ptolemaic, which was between 305 and 30 BC, and the Roman, which was from 30 BC to 641 AD. These things offer archaeologists some new insights into the unique burial practices and artistic endeavors from these historical periods. Number 6. Oldest runes in Denmark. Earlier in 2024, a group of archaeologists found a 2,000-year-old iron knife with what could be Denmark's oldest runes. The 3-inch blade has engravings that say Herilla, which means small sword in Old Norse. It was apparently labeled. Perhaps its original owner was being funny, or maybe they just weren't so bright. It's thought that the knife might date back to around 150 AD. Finding these runes is significant because they are the oldest that have ever been found in Denmark, and they even predate the famous Jelling runestones by about 800 years. A similar ancient runic artifact, a bone comb with the word Harja, meaning warrior or comb, was found in 1865 near Odense and is now at Denmark's National Museum. It seems that even ancient Norse people enjoyed obvious labeling. Just imagine what they would have done with a label maker machine. Number 5. Early medieval money. After peering at old coins for decades, a group of archaeologists have finally come to some conclusions. Although it was previously unknown, they finally answered the question of where most of the silver used in Anglo-Saxon England had come from. Between 660 and 750 AD, there was a massive surge in the use of silver coins in trade, and it had long been puzzling archaeologists as to where it had come from. But apparently there is now enough evidence to determine it was actually Byzantine bullion that was being used in that era. It's all fascinating, I'm sure. Number 4. Bronze jewelry. An excavation of a dried-up old lake in Poland uncovered 550 bronze artifacts and skeletal remains from over 3,000 years ago. These items have been linked to the Chelmno group from the late Bronze Age and early Iron Age, and seem to indicate that they practiced rituals involving burial and metal offerings in large bodies of water. Most of the artifacts that were found were arm and neck jewelry. The remains of 33 people seem to have been placed into the lake before the metal items, indicating that burials had preceded the other rituals. This discovery has significantly changed archaeologists' views of the Chelmno group. They consider it a key finding for understanding the ritual activities of the Lusatian period in Poland, which shows that we are always learning and making new discoveries about the history of the world. Number 3. Mysterious inscription deciphered. In yet another thrilling installment of Archaeology 2024 style, we have a bronze statue that was discovered all the way back in the 19th century. Apparently, nobody could, or could be bothered, to read the inscription on it, and someone finally did. So, this is a bronze Sphinx statue that was actually stolen from some European count in 1848. I'm guessing that he had probably half-inched it himself at some point, unless he was a direct descendant of the Kingdom of Dacia and had inherited it through the familial means. But he had not. Anywho, someone had drawn a picture of it or something, and so that's how the inscription was finally read, and it was super exciting to discover that it said, "Lo behold, worship, here is the Holy Lion." How life-changing is that? Number 2. Time capsule of prehistoric woodland. A buried prehistoric woodland has been discovered on Exmoor. The remains of trees and insects from the Neolithic and Bronze Ages have been found preserved in peatland at Alderman's Barrow Allotment on a National Trust estate in Somerset. This discovery was made during a year-long peatland restoration project, which included building leaky log dams to slow water flow, improve water quality, reduce carbon emissions, and preserve archaeology. It's all very worthy environmental stuff. The preserved remains give us a look at what the landscape and species were like in the area all the way back when the peat had formed, with plants and insects similar to those in wet woodland areas today. Samples were taken at intervals to create 1.5 meter deep sequences of peat, which was then analyzed in a specialist lab, and amongst the findings were fragments of a beetle that lives in damp conditions and remains of dung beetles, rove beetles, moss mites, and water scavenger beetles. Woodland floor remains from 4,500 to 3,500 years ago included trunks, branches, and twigs of trees like alder and willow, with birch seeds indicating nearby growth. Other remains date back to the beginning of the Neolithic age, showing sedges, rushes, birch, and oak, and many experts have been pretty excited about all that stuff, saying that being able to connect the area to its past helps them to work out the future landscape management for the entire region. Number 1. 4,750 Stone Plaza in Peru. This is a megalithic plaza in the Cajamarca Basin of the northern Peruvian Andes. It dates back to around 2850 BCE, which was during the late pre-ceramic period, and has only recently been discovered. It was apparently built with large standing stones, which is a method that had not been seen before in the Andes, and is quite different from other circular plazas in the area. It turns out that this particular plaza was built 100 years before the Great Pyramids of Egypt and around the same time as Stonehenge, and it was probably used as a gathering and ceremonial place for some of the earliest inhabitants of the area, who were mainly hunters and gatherers and had just begun farming and domesticating animals at that time in history. The plaza has 2 concentric walls, about 18 meters in diameter, and the late pre-ceramic period was a time of social and economic change in the Andes, where the coastal communities were not yet full-time farmers, but were engaged in complex exchanges with fishing communities. Inland groups grew some crops but still relied on hunting and also traded marine products, and the builders of the Calakpuma Plaza in the Northern Highlands may have begun experimenting with agriculture while remaining mobile hunter-gatherers. And so it seems that this architecture is a reflection of a society that was in the middle of some major changes in social progress. The archaeologists at the site think that the construction of the plaza may have involved some significant collective efforts and events that helped to shape group identities. This shift in architecture reflects broader social changes, moving from small group-based beliefs to more collective and regional practices, similar to developments seen at sites like Göbekli Tepe elsewhere in South America. Well, that's all for today's Adventures in Archaeology. Which of these thrilling discoveries has you leaping off the couch and heading out to dig a hole in your backyard in search of a long-lost treasure?